So you're making a move to southeastern Virginia. Maybe you're PCSing the Langley Air Force Base or taking a new job at the Newport News Shipyard. And now you're trying to figure out, do I want to live in Hampton or Newport News? Well, that's what today's video is going to be all about. It's going to be a compare and contrast between Newport News and Hampton, give you as much information as possible, help you make an informed decision for when you make your move. All right, stick around and we'll get right to it. Welcome back to Moving to Hampton Roads. My name is David Tortellini, and I help people just like you buy and sell properties in Newport News, Hampton, and throughout all of Hampton Roads. So if this is your first time to the channel, do me a favor and click that subscribe button so you can see our future videos. And then when you're ready to get going, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I'd love to help you out. All right, let's get to our video. So we'll be comparing Newport News and Hampton using 6 categories in today's video. And the reason we're really comparing these two cities with each other is that they are fairly similar. So they both sit on the Virginia Peninsula. And as you can see here, Newport News really runs up along the James River. And then Hampton is to the east of that, but is really more kind of circular shaped. And that's going to be kind of along the Chesapeake Bay. But they they are right next to each other, and they're of similar size. Newport News is about 185,000 people. Hampton's around 140, 145. So, they're pretty close, and there's so many other similarities to them that really you kind of have to get into the details about each one to figure out which might be a better fit for you. And the other thing being they're both populated by employees of the same 3 major employers, and those being Fort Eustis in Newport News, Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, and the Newport News Shipyard. So between those 3 major employers, that's going to be a big chunk of the population of each city. So for really anybody who's going to be at any of those 3 locations or any of the other thousands of employers throughout the region, these could be 2 cities that you could look at and try and figure out which is really a better fit for you in terms of your commute, lifestyle, whatever you're looking to do. All right, so let's start talking about the differences between Newport News and Hampton. Let's start with a fun category, and let's talk about beaches. If living near the beach is really important to you, then you really are going to be finding yourself leaning towards Hampton. So let's talk about why. So Newport News is really easy to cover because there's really only one beach in Newport News. It's along the James River, and it's the Huntington Park Beach or Huntington Beach. And that's really right next to the James River Bridge. There's a great restaurant on it called Crab Shack on the James. It's a great little beach. It really serves kind of like the downtown Newport News area and kind of Hilton area. But for the most part, it's a small beach. It's not used too much. I mean, for what it is, it's great, but it's small, and it really is not designed to handle the full population of Newport News. So, if you really want to be right on the beach, that's kind of your only option in Newport News. All right, so Newport News, that's easy. Hampton, on the other hand, great beaches. So there are really 3 major beaches to talk about in Hampton. The first, in the northernmost, is Grandview Beach. Now, Grandview Beach has 2 sections. One is kind of a private section where a lot of the beach is actually privately owned, so you kind of can't go on it. But then there's another section that's kind of a nature preserve section. So I really like this beach for people who like to be really active. It's almost more of a hike. In fact, you can hike quite a ways up to these kind of crescent jetties that they've built out there. It's actually where I proposed to my wife, and you can really enjoy a really lovely long walk on the beach. It's not so much used by like sunbathers or anything like that. But you can go out there, run the dogs during a certain time of the year that nobody follows the rules of anyhow. But, it's a great place to go for a walk on the beach. Now, you get down a little further south of that, and you get to what is really the primary beach in Hampton, and that's Buckroe. So Buckroe is very much your traditional big straight beach with a lot of space for laying out and playing volleyball and sand soccer and throwing a football around and just having a very traditional, fun kind of area. There's a lot of like little beach bungalow housing right around there and some big beach houses. So you can really live like that beach life right there at Buckroe. And, you know, it's got a big pavilion and playground, and there's just a lot going on in Buckroe. And then it brings you to our next big beach in Hampton, and that's going to be Fort Monroe. So Fort Monroe was an active base for a very long time, up until recently. Now that it's public, it's become one of the most popular places to go. Now, this is personally my favorite place to go to the beach in the area, and actually for me, it's my favorite in all of Hampton Roads, because when you get there, there are these really small jetties, and I have a small child, so they're great for bringing kids to, because they stay really shallow. So you can bring a small child there, and you know, if you're an adult, the water, you can walk out quite a ways in the water. You know, I'm not a tall guy, and the water like stays like below your chest for quite a ways out. So it's great when you have little kids. There are no waves. And then further down, kind of a little on one section, it does get a little flatter and straighter, and you know, you find more adults there. And for a few years, there was even a kind of a club that you could become a member of to lay out on chairs and all that kind of stuff. At the time of this video, it is no longer open, but I'm guessing something will go in there in the future. But, you know, that area is great. There's a brewery on there, a nice restaurant. So there's a whole lot to do on Fort Monroe. And of course, in the future, we're going to cover these beaches in full. But for the sake of this video, for comparing Newport News and Hampton, you know, if you being on the beach or really close to the beach is really important to you, Hampton wins this one, hands down. Our next category is going to be shopping. All right, so these are actually pretty similar. In Newport News, you have Jefferson Ave that runs north-south, and then in Hampton, you have Mercury, which runs east-west. And you are really looking at two very similar locations. So in Newport News, really Jefferson is going to be filled with a bunch of strip malls, but it's going to have, you know, your Costco's, it's going to have your Best Buy, Patrick Henry Mall there, which is a very traditional mall. You're really just going to have all of your basic big box retailers, your Lowe's and Home Depot and Michael's and Kohl's and all that kind of stuff. All the pet stores in the world are all going to be up and down Jefferson. Mercury is going to be very much the same in Hampton. It's going to have your Lowe's and Home Depot. You have the Coliseum Mall there, which was renovated about 7 to 10 years ago. And, you know, now it's this beautiful kind of outdoor mall, but it's still filled mostly with your traditional mall stores. So there's nothing really special going on there. But then they've built some new stuff next to that. There's a nice new Kroger there. You know, so between the two, the shopping in the area is going to be very traditional big box type stores. And when it comes to Newport News and Hampton, there's a whole lot of duplication. Now, the place where I kind of see a difference is grocery stores. And it's going to be two kind of specific things. Newport News has a Whole Foods, and Newport News has a Trader Joe's. And I think once you start shopping at like Trader Joe's, you kind of can't shop anywhere else because it's the best. And I know there are a lot of like Aldi and Lidl fans out there, and both cities have those. But, you know, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods kind of makes a big difference for me and for the people I know that like to shop there compared to being in Hampton. So I'm going to roll grocery stores into this category, you know, because between the two, you really aren't going to get too much difference in the retail. Now, Newport News also has a Costco. Now, I have a Costco membership. I don't shop there as much as I know I should, but everybody I know who loves to shop at Costco is obsessed. So Newport News also has a Costco. And I think that, you know, those kind of things kind of really do put Newport News over the edge versus Lowe's. Neither city have, you know, anything really high end. You know, you want to go to like a Gucci or something, you need to get out of Newport News and Hampton. We don't have that kind of stuff. So it's going to be your very traditional suburban, you know, big box retailers. If you need to find a Michael's or a Home Goods, we've got you covered. Both cities are going to be great for that kind of stuff. You know, then I'm just going to give the edge, though, in this category to Newport News because I think it has a better grocery store scene and it's got that big Costco that I know you love. Our next category is the one that goes hand in hand with shopping, and that's dining. So let's talk about Newport News first. The restaurant scene in Newport News isn't particularly good. And if you like kind of trendy, independently owned restaurants. Now, in Newport News, you do have a lot of chain restaurants. So if you do like Applebee's and TGI Fridays and Red Robin and, P.F. Chang's, those are going to be great restaurants for you to go to because Newport News has a lot of that. Again, all up and down Jefferson. So if you like big chain restaurants, Newport News has a lot of that, and that's really great for people who do move to this area. At least that means that they know that the thing that they liked where they used to live, they're going to like it here too. But if you're looking for small, privately owned kind of restaurants, Newport News is kind of lacking in that department. You have some great places like Circa 1918, Schooners, which happens to be my favorite restaurant in the area. And then you have a few more kind of scattered throughout. Craft 60 is really great. That's up on Warwick. I really recommend that restaurant. It's really good. But there's just not a ton. So, if you're coming to Newport News expecting a really, really great restaurant scene, then I think you're probably going to be in for a little bit of a disappointment. Now, Hampton, on the other hand, very cool restaurant scene, and it's kind of surprising, but so you have a few different places where you can go to get some great food. You have like the Phoebus area heading towards Fort Monroe. You have great restaurants like Mango and Drexler's and El Diablo and Stuffed. So there's a ton of restaurants right there, and there's a ton of housing that you can, walk out your front door and head straight to. So like that's an area where you can really be within walking distance of some really cool restaurants, and then you have downtown Hampton with like Brown Chicken, Brown Cow, Poor Girls, Marker 20. There are some really cool restaurants there, and including breweries too. Like the Vanguard is a brewery, distillery, and restaurant. Some of the best food in Hampton is at the Vanguard, along with beer and spirits too. I mean, the place is awesome, and you're gonna have like Bull Island Brewery, Ouzelfinch Brewery on Fort Monroe. And Newport News has some breweries too. They have Tradition, that's a great brewery in City Center, which is kind of like the main industrial, or I should say the main kind of like workspace for the city of Newport News. But and then there's like Coastal Fermentary. But Newport News, for a city of 185,000 people, doesn't really quite have the food or beverage scene that they have going on in Hampton. Hampton really does have a lot of really great specialty restaurants. And then on Mercury, it still has almost all the same chains that Newport News has on Jefferson. So there's a lot of repeat there, Red Lobster, Outback, Olive Garden, all that stuff, that's all going to be kind of in both Hampton and Newport News. So, from the chain standpoint, they balance each other out. But then when you get into like the privately owned restaurants, Hampton, I'm going to have to say, is leaps and bounds better than Newport News. Okay, and for our next category, let's talk about housing. So that's kind of important, right? This is a real estate channel, so we should talk about the housing in Newport News versus Hampton. All right, so for the most part, you're going to find a lot of similarities. These areas were built up around the same time, lots of construction in the 50s and 60s, and a lot of those are going to be kind of like brick ranch style house. So if you had to really define this area, I would say the brick rancher is the type of house that you can say Newport News and Hampton have in abundance. Then from there, you get a lot of similar size housing, going up to the 2-story kind of vinyl sided house in the 80s and 90s. And so for the most part, the normal housing in the area is going to be really similar between those two cities. Where you start to see some discrepancies are going to be things like, in Newport News, there's a big neighborhood. We've done a bunch of videos on it called Kiln Creek. And it's a big neighborhood that has about 5,000 houses and has a 5-mile loop around it. It's on a golf course. It has tons of pools and playgrounds and tennis courts and all that kind of stuff. And it's really kind of the premier non-waterfront neighborhood in Newport News. Hampton doesn't really have anything like that. The closest they get to it might be Michael's Woods, which has a lot of really great 2-story homes, has some great condos, townhomes, but it's not Kiln Creek. It doesn't have all the amenities that Kiln Creek has. So, that would be a category that I would definitely say, if you're looking for something like that with the really nice HOA, then Newport News is going to be better. Another place where Newport News kind of goes out on top is Newport News has a lot of large luxury homes on the James River. So up and down the James River, from Hilton really all the way up in close to Denby, you can buy like $1 million plus house in Newport News on a river that's several miles wide. And Hampton doesn't really have very much in that $1 million category. So if you're really looking for that higher end housing, Hampton does have some that's very special along North First Street in the Buckroe area, so you can live right on the beach. I mean, that little strip of housing is unbelievable. But there's a lot more options in Newport News. So, especially at that higher end. So I think in that sort of sense, if that's kind of your budget, then along the James and Newport News may be a better fit. Now, you go back to Hampton, and Hampton has neighborhoods like Grandview, or like I mentioned, North First Street, where they are beachfront, or they're in a beach community. Like Grandview's a beach community where you may not be on the beach, but you can see the water, and you can go right out your front door, and in 30 seconds, you can be on the beach. So, there are going to be some definite positives about the housing in Hampton, and then you have Newport News has a old historic neighborhood like Hilton Village. It's not quite as old, but you have the neighborhood of Wythe in Newport News. I'd say those are kind of comparable. So you really do have a lot of kind of things that balance each other off. You've got great riverfront housing on the Warwick, so it's a little smaller river, and then you have the same in Hampton as well. So you really are going to get a lot of similar housing between the two. Honestly, I'd have to just say they're too similar for me to say like, hey, the housing in one is really better than the other. The median sales price in both is practically identical. I think in the last 6 months, the median sales price in Newport News is $251,000, and in Hampton, it's $249,000. So they're practically identical from a price point. And they both have neighborhoods with condos and townhouse neighborhoods, a lot of really big similarities. So I'm going to call this one a wash. I think, from a housing standpoint, you'll have to get into neighborhood specifics before you can really make a determination on which is the best neighborhood for you. But from a city standpoint, I think you have to look at both. Our next category is going to be all about staying active outdoors, and that is going to be the parks. So in Hampton, we really have one major park, and that's Sandy Bottom Nature Park. And it's really quite an amazing park considering it's situated really right in the middle of the city. So it's in a pretty busy area near some large roads. But once you're there, you kind of disappear into the woods and around water, and you can be on these really beautiful wide trails. There's a lot of activities to do there, playgrounds. There's, it has a discovery center that's very nice. And so you really have a lot of opportunity to go there. It's conveniently located. It's right by, I mentioned Michael's Woods earlier, right across the street from there. So you can get there really easily. And it's a great park to get out on these big wide trails and kind of disappear to a point where you can't hear any traffic. And you can really be in this beautiful, serene place, kind of right in the middle of the peninsula. So really great park. And now also in the Coliseum area, they recently built a 2+ mile kind of trail system that it kind of starts at the Air Power Park where they have all these old airplanes you can go see. And you can start there, and it's a 2 mile out and back trail that they built right in the middle of the kind of the Coliseum area right off of Mercury. So you can be on this really busy road, pull over into kind of the little air museum, and then you can get on this cool trail and go for a walk during the day. So that's really neat too. But that is also kind of where parks in Hampton comes to an end. And it's really hard for Hampton to compare to Newport News on the park area. So, the very first video we ever did for this channel was parks in Newport News. And you really can't get around Newport News City Park. I mean, this is one of the premier municipal parks in the United States of America. It is 8,000 acres. It is enormous. It has miles of trails over and around the water. It has big pavilions, big playgrounds, archery, paddle boating, RV, parking and camping. So, I mean, this is a mega park. So it's really not fair for any other small, mid-sized city to try and compare to Newport News when it comes to this large, amazing park. So you have Newport News City Park, and then it's actually my favorite place on the peninsula is Nolan Trail. And this is a 5 mile trail that has some other loops to it, so you can cut that down, that goes around Lake Maury and down to what we call Lions Bridge, which is a bridge that runs right along the James River. It's beautiful and has one of the most, it's one of the most beautiful public areas definitely on the peninsula or in Newport News. So really just this beautiful, amazing hiking trail that is definitely one of the most popular places on the peninsula. And, between that and the Newport News City Park, I really just don't see any way where if being out and being active is really important to you, that you can't go with Newport News on this category, especially considering Sandy Bottom actually even kind of butts against Newport News. So if you live in, say, like the Meridian Parkside condos, you can just walk right out and be right in the park. So, even that Sandy Bottom Park is really conveniently located to Newport News. So we really have to give this category big time to the city of Newport News. All right, and that brings us to our final category. And that's going to be the schools. So I always have to say this, as a real estate agent, I'm really not supposed to give my personal opinion about the schools, but I can direct you to a website like niche.com where you can get more information on these schools and their rankings. And I do think niche.com does the best job of any of the websites that I've seen on kind of breaking down the school systems to give you kind of good baseline information. And to be honest, neither Newport News nor Hampton have the best reputations for their school system. Now, those reputations aren't, all-encompassing. They don't mean that your child won't have a great experience in either school system. But I think niche.com has them both at a B-. So not horrible, but not great. And so you really need to find kind of the best fit for you and your family when it comes to the school systems. And I think one thing that they don't talk about enough on these online websites are things like Newport News has a great magnet program. So I'll make sure to put a link in the description for the magnet program website in Newport News. But, there's everything from like the aviation school at Denby High to kind of like arts and communication, music at Woodside. So you can really kind of run the gamut in terms of these categories. If your child really leans towards one thing, you should maybe look at the magnet program in Newport News. Then in Hampton, they have what's called the Academies of Hampton. And I'll put a link in the description for that as well. But it's very similar in the sense that there are a lot of options for these students to find their way in advanced programs and things that they really are passionate about. And the Hampton Academies program is really a whole lot. So the website, when you go onto it, you'll see that there's kind of a ton going on there. And if you do need to speak to somebody about the Hampton Academies program, I do have a client who is very involved in that and could actually put you in touch with him because he's always willing to talk to people about it. So, but the Newport News school system, the Hampton school system, they don't have the reputation that the York County school system does, which is ranked like number 3, I think, in the state of Virginia. So you really are running into, the difference there, and if you do want to be in York County, price point jumps up about $100,000. So, it's just a little bit of a challenge. So, you really want to do your research, call the schools, meet with the principals, find out which programs are best for your children, figure out kind of which schools and housing match up best for you. Because one of the things, even though my wife taught elementary school in Hampton, Newport News, and York County. So, we have a lot of knowledge about the school system. Unfortunately, the way they've asked us to do our jobs as realtors kind of limits what we're able to just outright say in terms of our personal opinion. So do your research, go to those links that are in the description. They're extremely helpful, give a lot of details, contact information so that you can figure out what's best for your family. Okay, well, there it is, our comparison of Newport News and Hampton. And I hope you found this video at least helpful to give you a baseline understanding of each city. And I know that ideally you're able to spend time in both cities and go through a bunch of neighborhoods in both to really get a feel for which one is a better fit for you. Now, that's not always possible with our population, particularly our military population. Sometimes you're here on a whirlwind couple of days and you need to find a house and go from there. Other times you need to buy a home completely sight unseen. So it can be really challenging. So definitely, I hope you got a lot out of this video, and watch our other videos so you can really get a feel for both cities, find out what's best for you and your family. And when you kind of have an idea of that, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. My team and I are here, and we'd love to help you out with your next move. In the meantime, like this video, share it with anyone else you know who may be making a move to the area. Comment on what you like about Newport News and Hampton and how they compare and contrast, that maybe I missed something. And then, of course, subscribe to this channel so you can see all of our future videos as they come active. All right, again, my name is David Tortellini. I'm with eXp Realty. Thanks so much for watching.